Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the next episode of The Signal, where we walk you through what's happening in the world of high stakes sales, how to sell to governments, and some really cool systemized approach to leveraging tools like AI to just be more successful and effective at what you do. So last week we covered a detailed discussion about the 5 major go-to-market mistakes that companies make with account research. So this would be building target lists that sales and sellers and marketers can use to execute their campaigns. Like I think I mentioned in the last episode that over my 20-year career, I've managed dozens of teams and hundreds and thousands of sellers, marketers, and just really high stakes people, really switched on people that can do their job really well. But the advent of AI, the advent of automation has really changed the game for how we go after our customers. So the key here is that there is no magic wand. I've wrote about this before. I've talked about it in videos. Everybody thinks that the promises made by the software vendors or gurus or whatever that you can just magically flip a switch and all of a sudden you're so successful. But we know that's not true. So if you can remember last week, we covered those 5 mistakes that people make with the premise that there's always an easier way. And it's true, there is always an easier way, but that way is not always as obvious as one might hope. So for this episode, as promised, I'm going to walk you through a simple 3-step process that I take to systemize the way we go to market and the way we build target accounts lists. Okay. So let's start with this simple 3-step process. Is number 1 is identify your mission. So what is the purpose of what you're trying to do in order to be effective? Any process that runs without a really clear mission statement is going to be failed. It might not get you what you're looking for every time, which means it's a failed process. So I'd like to walk you through really quickly setting that mission statement. I like to look at the BHAG, or the big hairy ass goal of what you're trying to do as a revenue team in the first place. Now, for this particular team that I want to use as an example, the purpose is to grow revenue 10% year over year. I chose a super simple number, a super relevant goal that most of you probably have out there just for illustration purposes. The second would be to identify the task goal. So for this particular task, what we're talking about is identifying tier 1 accounts lists for sellers to use in their outreach. That's a nice, simple way to start. The second part is taking that business goal and the task goal and mapping out how your team gets this information right now. So that would be mapping out your current process. This can be anywhere from 2 to 100 steps. I hope it's not 100 steps, truly, but really map out the process of what your team does today. So what are your SDRs, BDRs, partner managers, whatever you call them at your company, what do they do to actually build a target accounts list? Now, if you're like most teams that I've worked with, you're going to pay a subscription to a tool like ZoomInfo or Apollo or even LinkedIn Sales Navigator, and you're going to leverage the filters that they have to come up with all of the different ways, all the different accounts that kind of fit your total addressable market. So your market, right? So this could be things like defining your ICP, your ideal customer profile. What should you actually put in those filters to be effective? Okay. To come up with the accounts list, you'll open your list building tool. So like I use Apollo. So this is an example of an accounts list that I pulled. For those who were watching, sorry if you're listening, but I'm showing a screen of an accounts list that I created through the filters in Apollo. From there, you kind of take a look, and an experienced B2B, B2G marketer or seller is going to know exactly this target account. This account doesn't fit. Even if you have the best filters in the world, you're always going to come up with some garbage content. So it's really important that you have that experience, that keen eye to look, is this the right list for me? And as you can see from this image here, again, for those who are listening or watching, it has several accounts that literally do not fit the filters at all. This is so common. It's frustrating, but it is what it is. It's part of what we do. And it's important that you have that keen eye to look through and see this. So I'm not going to walk through the whole process here, but you get the idea. Is what you're doing is you're thinking, okay, as a human, if I'm using the standard tools that are available to sellers, what am I going to do to figure this out? And you notice even in this list alone, there's 3, 4 items that shouldn't be there at all. Once you're mapping out the process, you want to identify those roadblocks. Identify things like what we're talking about is this doesn't fit. If I'm building a list of production companies in Texas, I don't really want to see a hospital or those types of accounts that really don't fit my go-to-market strategy. So what are the roadblocks that you're consistently coming across? This is really important for when you take the next step, which is validating the information that you get. So the next step is going to be actually how we use AI. Now, everybody hears AI again. Is that another magic wand? I'm not trying to tell you that this is another magic wand. AI is a useful tool. It's not going to replace your best sellers. It's not going to replace your best leaders or marketers. What it's going to do is enhance the ability of those experienced people to do the job and get you that perfect accounts list every single time. So the way I use it, now my team has some really, really complex and extended processes for doing this. I'm not going to expect anybody in your team or in your circle to do the same level as we do, because this is literally what we do for a living. But I can break down the kind of 3 core buckets of what we do and how we sweat the system and make sure AI can actually deliver consistent results for us and build great accounts list. And I do this with these 3 statements. So these are 3 statements you can put into any of your consumer or commercial grade AI tools in order to build accounts lists that actually matter. So you'll see it probably pop up in your HubSpot, in Clay, or all of these tools that are available to you right now. And they ask you for a prompt. And your natural solution is to just say, okay, well, I want to get production companies in Texas that meet this kind of category, right? Yeah, well, that does work. But again, you're going to have all this garbage. So you need to add the third step, these 3 steps that I want to talk through. So here they are. For those who are just listening, I'm going to say this in a quick way, but statement 1 is your mission and purpose. So our business goal is to grow revenue 10% year over year. To support that goal, the research task will identify tier 1 government agencies in Texas that are within 18 months of contract renewal in our solution category, ... So we're talking about the purpose here. What are we actually going to do? Or what are we trying to achieve? The next thing, statement 2, this is about the process. So remember, we mapped out the process in, the 2 to 100 steps, as I mentioned previously. And you're going to talk about, to find this information manually, we would search usspending.gov for expiring contracts in our category. We would look at SAMGov to look at current RFPs that are out there. We would look at several different aspects of your general market to find information and find that perfect accounts list. And we're going to tell the tool, whichever tool you choose, to follow this process consistently. If your tools, no matter how smart they are given very crystal clear instructions on what to do, they have a much higher chance of actually delivering that every single time. So it's really important to map your process consistently, map your process thoroughly so that the tool knows actually what to do. If said tool actually has the ability to search like this. Then finally, this is really important. And this is a step that a lot of people don't really follow through with in your standard tools. So if I'm just looking on ChatGPT and I'm doing these searches or whatnot, QA, so quality assurance, is the single most important thing you can look at, because you need to define, when do you run this process? How frequently do you run it? How long should it take? What are the details that you're looking for? Are you looking for those roadblocks? And do you have processes and statements to cut these out? So this is the validation. It's really, really, really important that anybody who performs the validation, no matter how smart your tool is, it's important that the person using the tool has the ability to spot these things just naturally from years of experience and just doing the job. Because if you leave it up to AI, you've all seen this. There's literally a term called AI slop for a reason, because it shows a bunch of junk that may or may not be relevant depending on what you're looking for. Now, if you're just asking it for where is the closest barber to my house, of course it's going to come up with something really consistent and easy. But if you're asking it to find a specific type of tier one account in Texas, in this industry, in da 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 da, you get the picture. There are so many areas where it could go wrong that you may end up with a just garbage list that fills your CRM with a bunch of stuff that nobody can use and cause really costly data fix project, which is just not something anybody wants to do. I've paid for that too many times in my career, and I can tell you, I have no interest in doing it again. So again, let's go back to why we talked about this in the first place. This is not a magic wand, okay? Last week, we covered the 5 serious GTM mistakes that companies make when trying to build account lists. And these are systematic ways, how they actually structure, how they get their data. Today, we wanted to walk you through just a really quick and simple 3-step process you can use with any AI tool out there. If you map out your process, you define your goals, you map out your process, and then you validate where to find that information over and over and over again, whether it's manual research or an AI tool, you're going to be successful and you're going to deliver consistent quality data to your sales and marketing team so that they can do their jobs the best. So I hope this was very helpful, and maybe you have some ideas. Please share with me in the comments and DM. I'm always looking for more information and more stuff to go through, to go over in the Signal podcast. So thanks again for listening, and have a great day. Bye-bye.